All right, welcome back to another day here on the bus build. If you are a follower of this series, you know that we've been a little bit behind for about 2 weeks in posting on what we've been up to, but there's been some good reason for that. And at the end of this video, I want to share why we've been a little delayed and what we've been working on in the background. But I keep saying we, which means someone's back. And I want to show you who that person is, and then we can get to all this strapping, sheeting, and why and how the bus looks like this. So you might be able to see in the background that there's like an SUV right there. Oh, you kind of can't really see it. But guess who's back?
The prodigal son has returned.
The prodigal son. You're not my son.
And the old lady a nose job.
I know. Luke's actually back. He's back on the build. He's been helping me out for the last few weeks, and he's going to be around for quite some time. If you might recognize this hood, because we're actually refiberglassing good old Navi's hood. It may or may not have snapped off in a accident at some point. Kind of on bumpy roads, it just snapped the fiberglass. So Luke's actually really good at fiberglass, and he's going to be getting on this right now, but we're actually going to get back to sheeting because that's what this video is actually about.
Don't tell anybody, but Navi's getting into some plastic surgery.
Some plastic surgery?
She's getting to that age.
The first thing that we needed to do was head down to the store because we didn't have any plywood left to actually start sheeting the school bus. So we ended up down to Home Depot to pick up some wood. If you're wondering, what we're using in this case is 1/2-inch birch cabinet plywood. It runs for about $42 to $60 a sheet depending on where you're buying it in the country, but this is what we're going to be using for most of our interior sheeting and actually most of our cabinets once we actually get to it. Well, once we got the plywood home, the first thing that we started working on was actually boxing out the wheel wells. It's kind of the most natural and easiest thing for us to do in terms of the way that we had this whole thing laid out. But started boxing these guys out, getting them sheeted. Eventually these will be built into cabinets, and then starting all of our sidewood. In order to box out the wheel wells, the first thing I need to do is get correct measurements on the actual square that was already put in before spray foam. Now these measurements were a little off and they weren't perfectly square because what happened during the spray foam process was the spray foam expanded slightly and bowed out some of the edges of the wheel well. So something I learned this time around is that it might be a good idea to add some strapping in there to hold it completely square so that when the spray foam is expanding, it doesn't push any of the 1/2-inch plywood out. So in this case, we're gonna have to do a little bit of scribing work to get the piece to fit perfectly, but we do our measurements, then we can cut it. Now our table saw is not exactly able to cut 4x8 sheets safely, so what we ended up doing in this case is using a circular saw and a straight edge so that we can get completely straight cuts and mill down our 4x8 sheets of plywood into a more manageable shape. And once we have that piece completely cut, all I have to do now is prep the space inside the school bus, making sure that all of the residual spray foam that might have gotten on the wood from overspray, it's all completely scraped off so we have a nice flat surface to put our top plate on. And once that's done, we can now put up the walls. Definitely excited to get the plywood starting to get cut, but the one thing that we realized is every time you're doing your first cuts, try to slow down and check your saws, because what we just realized was that our saw was not square. So we started cutting our plywood sheets, all of them would have been off. So right now what we're gonna do is go through all of our saws and make sure that everything is dialed in and correct. So when we actually start making all of our cuts with all of this plywood here, it's actually gonna be straight and we know that we're gonna have good 90 corners. Whereas with this saw, the way it currently sits, we would have had like really weird angles and nothing would have lined up.
Janky.
So in order to finish up the back wall of the school bus, back where the solar system is actually going to end up going, I needed to finish installing the 120 lines. Now I didn't install these before spray foam because I didn't want to have them spray foamed in, nor did I want to have to run them through conduit. So at this point we only actually have 2 120 lines running. One's going to the kitchen and one goes up to the roof.
Now why does that have to go to the roof, one may ask?
For the AC needs 120 volt power. So like I was saying before, we're only gonna have one 120 volt power plug in the kitchen and then one 120 volt line going to the AC, and that's it. Everything else is 12 volt in this entire rig. That's it. Don't ask me about 120 because we don't run a lot of it.
Why is that?
Because 12 volts is just better. No, 12 volts just more efficient. Once that was done, we were able to finish up the back part of the bus and get all those pieces of wall put in. And I've got to say, it is sure nice to have Luke back. Thanks, man, for helping out. I was gonna say more like glad you're back, man.
Pound it.
Whoa, pound it.
No,
there we go. Woohoo! Dude, that line too. Like, oh my gosh.
That's pretty good.
It's gonna come out so clean.
Mike just said he has an idea.
Best way to figure out if it's gonna fit is to just do it. Ugh.
As far back as you could even, this would be if you,
And I'm as far back as I can go.
well, the thing is there's gonna be a drawer there for the cooler. Or wait a second.
Should we move the wood stove over to this side?
No, we can't because the deck ends right. The deck ends up here.
Why couldn't you?
You have to put it in the front right where you're sitting then.
So what do you put on that side? Put the cooler on that side?
Yeah.
And you don't do a dinette here?
I don't know. I don't know what to do with this space. We designed the rest of it so well. This is like the, it's like
A one chair dinette would be so sad.
a one chair dinette. I'm not disagreeing with you here. I'm just
It's
trying
fine
to.
eat, but I say maybe just do a couch.
But then it's like two couches, and it just looks stupid.
That's true.
What if we just did like a freestanding
Well-
chair, like just a chair?
Or a hanging chair?
A hanging chair. We did not put the supports in for that. So we're going to be talking about the floor plan in a later video, but for now we're just going to leave it at that we're trying to still figure it out. But when you're trying to do the plywood, one thing that you really want to make sure is that you take your time so that all of your measurements are precise. Now before, in a previous video, we spent so much time trying to make sure that all of our strapping and framing was already in the right location. So at this point, all that we have to do is make sure that our plywood lines up with all of our edges and we are good to go. Now it might be the case that you're going to have to remove some of the spray foam because of where it expanded on the edges, just to make sure that your plywood can fit perfectly flat up against your strapping and you're gonna have a seamless edge all the way down your school bus. Once we got some of these larger pieces in, I decided to move on to the rear of the bus where there's gonna be a lot of 45s and tight edged corners, which definitely takes a lot of time and a lot of focus.
What seems to be the problem, Michael?
Well, buses are never square, you know? Like you do the best you can, but then you gotta adjust. So this is square, but the floor of the bus to the actual body of the bus isn't perfectly square. But I don't care about the floor because it's eventually gonna get covered with like, you know, the flooring and everything. What I care about is this top edge and the side edge. But we're like 1/8 of an inch off. And you might say, why does that matter? It matters a lot. Just not sure how to make it happen.
What'd you decide, Mike?
I'm gonna take a blade out of it and see if I can get the adjustment to shift for me. It's, you know, it's a shot in the dark, but, you know, half the time we work in the dark anyway, so what's the difference? Safety first.
53rd. Is that what's going through your head all the time, Mike?
You don't want to know.
Is there any way I could
Hold
borrow
on.
the...
Mike's having a moment.
Oh my god, look at that. Look how clean that is.
Oh man, 45 little seamless corner.
Oh gosh, it's gonna be so nice. Rach,
What am I looking at?
come here, come here.
All right.
I gotta show you this. All right, remember we were talking?
Yeah.
Remember we were talking about these corners?
Yeah.
Okay, take this piece and push it together right there.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that, how clean.
Oh, that is super clean.
They can't even see the seam.
That's so good.
Oh my
it's you can't see a seam at all.
Sorry
Oh.
moment, but I'm gonna use the saw.
What'd you say, Luke?
What? I can't hear you.
Oh my gosh.
How many 45s we got on there? We
A
got
lot.
1, 2,
It fits
3.
right in there. Oh my goodness. Dude, look at that casing.
Seamless.
I am...
Couple screws.
I don't think I could be happier right now,
wood
Luke.
filler. Look at this. Show them how it goes in. Show them how it goes in right there.
It's just a little... Whoop.
Oh my gosh, dude.
That is just, that's how it's done.
Proper planning produces, I can't think of another P word,
Preparation goes in there somewhere.
but I want to make it positive. So I want to be like proper preparation makes for proper performance. That's what we'll go for.
Oh, and by the way, that's not one piece of wood. So good. I can't,
Oh my goodness. So now that we have most of the back trim figured out, sorted, and cut on their 45 angles, we can move on to the next step. And that next step is going to be framing out the windows. On the driver's side is going to be our kitchen, so I'm not too concerned about how these are going to be cased out because there will be molding in the end. But what we're doing is we're creating an outside perimeter around all 3 windows and then creating individual casings to hit the molding locations in between. Another way that you could do this is just create individual frames for each window and then just face cap each individual piece so that it looks like one entire casing. But once again, because this is going to be behind kitchen cabinets, we're not exactly too concerned about showing the edging of the plywood or the actual final scribed edge. On the other side of the school bus though, we are going to have full exposed windows, so we want to be really careful on this side to make sure that all of our lines and edges line up perfectly because these are actually going to be revealed in the final product. So if you can see right here where the window casings are, we've already got all of ours pre-cut, all the 45s are completely done. So once we are ready to actually install these pieces in here, all we have to do is just insert them right here and this window will be completely, cased out and perfect to go. Unfortunately though, we still have a bit more to do. So we haven't really actually gotten up into this front section yet. We have completed all these side upper pieces, which are up here, but this is just gonna take a bit more detail. The reason is because I'm gonna be putting a cabinet up here, so I have to get this all framed out, and then I actually have to run back to the store because I don't have enough sheets for the ceiling. So that's gonna have to be left for another job. But pretty much all the principles that we talked about in this video in terms of making sure you're getting your measurements nice and tight, taking your time with the molding and getting it nice and sheeted up, pretty much at the end of the day, reveals to you just a big square wooden box, which from this point on, it's gonna be pretty much just like building a house where we drop in our cabinets, we drop in our walls, and we start framing and doing a lot more typical construction work because we finally got ourselves from metal to wood. So I did say before this video was over that I had a bit of an announcement, and the announcement is that I actually have been working on an ebook. So this ebook is pretty much gonna be covering how to find a bus, how to buy a bus, what to look for, the ins and outs of making sure that you find the perfect one for your conversion, and that's gonna be released next month. And that's one reason why I've been a little bit delayed on the build is because I've been writing so much. Now, I know that some of you out there are already currently looking for school buses, so next month might be too late for you. So what I also did was I created a buyer's checklist that you can download on my website. So if you're interested, you can actually go to my website and download that right now and get started on finding your best bus. And then later on in the future, when the ebook actually comes out, if you're interested, I'll make sure that I link that in a video so you'll be aware when it actually comes out. So now that most of the writing's done, it definitely means that I'm gonna be getting back onto the build series a bit more. But I'm really excited to get all this out and really try to help a lot of people out there who are looking to do this exact thing, building a school bus and having the best ability to do it. If you're interested, go check it out on my website. If not, I'll see you next time when we start finishing up the strapping, getting some cabinets started, and just making this thing starting to look like a home. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.